Hello and welcome to Philosophy Vibe, the channel where we discuss and debate different philosophical ideas. Today we'll be looking into a very interesting ethical principle, and that is the Doctrine of Double Effect.
Excellent.
So, the Doctrine of Double Effect is a set of criteria used to justify an action that may cause harm in order to promote a greater good. Often, we humans may find ourselves in ethical dilemmas where causing some sort of harm is unavoidable. The Doctrine of Double Effect is then invoked to set out when it is permissible for an action to cause harm in the pursuit of promoting a good end. In this video, I will explain the Doctrine of Double Effect, and then we will look at some potential problems with the principle.
Great, let's begin.
Very well. So then, the Doctrine of Double Effect is often credited to St. Thomas Aquinas as the first philosopher to espouse the theory as part of Christian ethics. Now, it's very well known that there are often ethical dilemmas whereby a certain amount of harm will come about, and ethicists struggle to determine when it's acceptable to allow or even cause grave harm in order to achieve a greater good. Typically, people think about the foreseen death of human beings in order to save the lives of other human beings. So, the question moral philosophers ask is, when is this permissible? Here is where the Doctrine of Double Effect comes into play. There are 4 conditions that must be satisfied in order for the harm to be morally justified.
Right.
The first is that the action itself must be morally good or at least morally neutral. The second is that the person doing the action does not actually will the harm. They do not intend or want the harm to happen, but rather it's just a negative side effect of their action. In other words, if the same outcome can happen without the harm, the person would avoid doing the harm.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The third condition is that the good outcome must be caused by the action, not the harm that happens. So, if the harm directly causes the good consequence, this is using a moral bad to create a moral good, which is not permitted. The doctrine is merely allowing a moral bad to happen as a side effect in achieving a moral good, not that the moral bad is happening for the sake of achieving a moral good. So, a good result does not justify evil means. And finally, the fourth is the proportionality. So, the good end must be justified in proportion to the harm that happens. So, the good must be desired. You can't, for example, allow the death of hundreds of people to save one person breaking an arm. That is not in proportion.
Yes, I understand.
So, let's come up with a scenario, an ethical dilemma where the Doctrine of Double Effect will come into play. All 4 conditions will be met with ethical reasoning to see how this would work.
Sure, go for it.
Imagine we have a big office building right next to a small hospital. A big fire breaks out in the office building and there are hundreds of employees trapped. The power supply has been fried and the building's water sprinklers won't come on. The rescuers assess the situation and figure out that if the backup generator is manually turned on, the sprinklers will start and put out the whole fire. However, they are informed this surge will cause a blackout in the hospital next door. It will be a really short blackout, but one person who is on life support machine will die as a result. So, a foreseen harm will happen as a side effect of pursuing the moral good. Now, the rescuers want to save the hundreds of people, so they turn to the Doctrine of Double Effect. Is the action itself morally good or at least morally neutral? So the action is pulling a lever. It's not stabbing someone or choking someone. The act is pulling a lever, so it's probably morally neutral. So that's satisfied. Number 2. Do the rescuers will for the person on life support machine to die? Absolutely not. They don't know this person, they feel bad, they wish he could survive, they have informed the hospital to try everything they can to save him. Number 3. Does the good result in the harm? No, it doesn't. The people will not be saved because this person has died. It's not like the situation needs the person on life support machine to die. The death does not cause the saving of the office workers. All that's needed is the sprinklers to work. The death is an unfortunate side effect, so this is satisfied. And finally, is it proportional? Yes. We are talking about saving hundreds of people versus one unfortunate death. So, the Doctrine of Double Effect will permit turning on the backup generator.
Fascinating.
Well, I completely made up the scenario to illustrate the point, but there are a lot of real-world examples where the doctrine comes into play. Consider the doctor who administers pain-killing drugs to a terminally ill patient. He knows that the drugs will cause the death of the patient, but the sole intention is pain relief. The death would be an unfortunate side effect, so the doctrine would allow this. However, if the doctor's intention was purely to end the patient's life, then this would not be morally permissible. There's also the story of wartime battles and bombers, where armies who are trying to destroy the enemy will have civilian casualties being foreseen but not intended. And of course, a common one that's discussed is around the life of a fetus during a procedure trying to save the mother. So this doctrine is used very often during many moral situations.
Yes, I can see. I think it's quite a reasonable doctrine. It makes sense. It reasons how and when to allow harm in a moral situation. But if I was to look at the criticisms of the doctrine, at first, to me, this just seems like a typical consequentialist or utilitarian principle. We are solely concerned with the end result, and it's all about maximizing utility, the greatest good for the greatest number. It's not any more profound than that, and in addition, it suffers the same objections that will be marshalled against a utilitarian moral philosophy.
No, I completely disagree with you. Whilst there are consequentialist elements in this doctrine, there are equally deontological elements as well.
How so?
The end result is not the sole concern, as would be the case with utilitarianism, and this is pretty obvious when you look at the third condition. The good must be caused by the action, not the harm. So if, for example, you're in a situation where you must kill 5 people in order to save 10, so the harm is actually the means to the good end, the doctrine would not permit this, whereas utilitarianism would permit this, as it is solely concerned with the end, not the means. So condition 3 of the Doctrine of Double Effect completely escapes it from utilitarian criticisms.
Right, I see. Okay, let's focus on the proportionality condition. It completely makes sense, and it's there to stop grave unintended harms for small amounts of good. So, if we use your office hospital example, say the office was empty apart from one plant about to be burnt, the doctrine would not permit the generator being turned on. Or, the doctrine would not permit a doctor prescribing strong painkillers that could kill you for a small headache, even if their intention was to alleviate your pain.
Correct.
Yes. But the criticism I have around proportionality is that it's fine for these clear-cut cases, like the one you mentioned, one person versus hundreds of people. It gets really difficult when the scales start to balance. Imagine there were 100 90-year-old people on life support machine in the hospital, but there were 10 5-year-old children in the building. Or what if there was one person with the cure for all deadly diseases in the building versus 1,000 random people on life support machine in the hospital? At this point, the doctrine is not enough, the proportionality condition is not enough, and the loosely defined terms of good and harm are not enough. We then need to lean on our moral intuitions and meta-ethics as to what feels right. So, at best, this is a guiding principle for clear and obvious moral dilemmas like the one you raised. Outside of this, the doctrine of double effect is pretty much dropped. Even condition 3 of the means to an end can seem intuitively wrong in certain situations. Imagine if a small harm is directly needed to save the lives of thousands of people. So someone says, I will kill all these people unless you pinch that person. So it's a small harm, but the harm is the means to an end and therefore unjustifiable.
Yes, I see.
It's a stupid example, but I'm using it to show that our moral intuitions come into play here more so than the doctrine of double effect. So, for ethical dilemmas, you need more than a simple doctrine. I don't think it goes far enough.
Good point. If you would like the script to this video and you would also like to help support the channel, then please check out the Philosophy Vibe Ethics ebook available on Amazon. This is a compilation of the scripts from a number of our ethics videos. It's a great read for those interested in ethics, and it's a great study guide for those studying ethics at college or university. All sales really help out this channel and we really appreciate it. The links are below. But that's all the time we have for now. Thank you for watching. We hope you enjoyed the vibe. And what does everyone else think? Is the doctrine of double effect a good doctrine for approaching moral dilemmas? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like and share. And for more philosophical debates and discussions, please subscribe to the channel. Take care, and we look forward to seeing you all soon. Bye bye.